Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Network Television, where we keep you updated with all the juicy stories that are dropping on our Nigerian newspaper. I am Sele Elisha Dasham, and I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning, Sele.
All right, and to our viewers who are also watching us, remember you can be part of the conversation by dropping your comment on our Facebook and YouTube handle, and then we'll do well to take those comments live here on the program. And we'll go straight into the paper. Rachel will be taking us through the first paper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Army redeploys 975 officers, cancels 120 postings. Exercise a routine, a statement coming from the spokesman. You can find details on page 29. Alleged $6 billion Mambila power fraud, showing car raises the alarm as court remands Ogunloye in Kuje prison. Details can be found on page 2. Atedola donates 1 billion naira to Lagos Security Trust Fund. Makinde hands over 100 patrol vehicles to police, army, and others. I will appear in court to prosecute people charged with corruption, coming from the ICPC chairman. You can find details on page 29. The big story on the paper, CBN sacks boards of Union, Keystone, and Polaris banks. You can find details on page 6. Court to deliver judgment in suit seeking to stop elections from holding on Saturdays. Attack on Ekoko Kogi government, arrest 6. How I was attacked. You can find more details on page 2. Omotekun arrests 2 caught with human head, body parts in Saki. Details can be found on page 15. EFCC to grill Edu Sadia Halima daily until they get answers, I believe. You can find details on page 29. Prospective core members now to register with NIN. You can find details on page 29, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Punch newspaper, still on the issue of the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, EFCC squeezes top ministry officials. ICPC recovers 50 billion naira. Detail of that story can be found inside the paper. Naira plunges to 1,082 naira per dollar after CBN $2 billion repayment. Obasanjo ex-minister Aguloye arranged for $6 billion Mambila contract. You can find detail on page 14. The big story, CBN sack Union Polaris Keystone Bank's board. We have Modibo, over 25 bank chairman, MDs, directors asked to resign. Interim board likely today. CBN warn against panic withdrawals. Detailed found in the paper. Marketers to meet Dangote over fuel supply. Detail of that story as well can be found on page 20. COVID-19, not over 10,000 deaths recorded December, coming from the World Health Organization. Also, we are having Nigeria records 635 billion naira lost first in the new year, talking about the issue of Nigerian export and all of that. Also, we have suspended Unical Don still in prison after 250 million naira bill. This is talking about lecturers who are actually into sex for marks. Detail of that found in the paper. Sanwo-Olu hails Aditola 1 billion naira security donation. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On First News newspaper, federal government takeover of banks. We have 259 anti-corruption coalition praises Obazi for job well done. Recommends him for national honor, urges president to give him more important national assignment. I believe this is on the investigation that has been going on in the Central Bank of Nigeria. Some of the results are which is leading to some of the suspensions we are seeing in the commercial banks. Still on First News newspaper, cash transfer 283,003 Lagos residents to get 25,000 naira each. Ignore mischief maker, APC chieftain urges Aidatiwa. This is in Ondo State. Femi Adetola donates 1 billion naira to Lagos Security Trust Fund. $6 billion Mambila scandal, court remands ex-minister Ogunloye in prison. The big story on the paper, special investigators report. Federal government axes 4 banks over CBN looting as Apex Bank takes over Union Bank, TTB, Polaris, Keystone Bank, SAGS, management and board. merges them to form two government-owned commercial banks, considers new names for merged banks. Real reasons Beta Edu fell out with Halima Shehu. This is coming from sources. You can find the details inside First News newspaper. We seized illegal goods worth 16 trillion naira in 2023, says Customs. No more indiscipline in Waterways Authority, coming from Oye Bamiji. And on AFCON 2024, go for the goals, David Mark urges Super Eagles. As Super Sports make U-turn, decide to show matches. I believe that this is a good development. And at the downside of the paper, I will support Tinubu without apologies, says Atiku's ex-aide Bwala. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Voice of Liberty. Still on the $6 billion Mambila deal, Abuja court remand ex-power minister in prison. You can find detail of the story in the paper. Tinubu appoints 11 board members from the NAHCON. You can find detail of the people involved and the names of them. Detail of that story can be found inside the paper. And on the issue of the 585 million naira scandal, Permanent Secretary takes over Humanitarian Affairs Ministry. CBN sacked Taitik Trust, Union Bank, Kingston Bank, Polaris Bank Board. The Central Bank of Nigeria has with immediate effect sacked the entire board of directors of Polaris, Union, and Keystone Banks. Detail found in the paper. Super Sport to now air AFCON matches live. This is coming from MultiChoice. And also we have Tinubu upright supporting fight against crafts. Detail found inside the paper. This is a report coming from the EFCC chairman. Ashwaju achieved in 1 week what would take Buhari a year. This is coming from Omokire. And then on the issue of the FCT mini resident kidnapped in Abuja community, this is coming from the police. They are confirming that, and I hope that they swift into action. We need to know what the problem is and why we are having a number of residents being kidnapped in Abuja when it's expected that security is supposed to be tight. So if something is not being done about that, it's a matter of time before we hear that everywhere. Not only are we fighting the issue of unknown gunmen or bandits, but then we are also having the issue that even while in your house, Rachel, you can be kidnapped. So I think the security force need to intensify the issue when it comes to securing lives and property, so that you can actually be free to also go to the next shop in the area without being afraid that you'll be kidnapped whatsoever. So the police need to confirm what really is the problem. Why are we having a number of residents being kidnapped? I think we saw that yesterday or 2 days back, the number of people who were being kidnapped in Abuja. So I really hope the government will swift into action. Let's not just focus on one area, meanwhile another area is suffering when it comes to security. All right, and I think that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On Daily Independent, the big story, operators ask NACOM to punish claims defaulters, worried they are denting image of insurance sector. You can start with the details on the front page. Customs seizes illegal goods worth 16 trillion naira in 2023. This is coming from the Controller General, explains 532 billion naira revenue shortfall. Obaseki is a betrayer, says Edo Deputy Governor for refusal to back Guba bid. $6 billion Mambila scam court remands ex-minister Ogunloye in Kuje Correctional Center, showing car raises the alarm over Ogunloye's safety in prison. You can find details on page 29. ICPC chairman promises to lead prosecution team in court. Sanwo-Olu receives $1 billion naira donation to Lagos Security Trust Fund. Supreme Court dismisses SDP suit against Finteri's re-election. Governor Eno seeks Tinubu support over Akwa Ibom Seaport and oil palm projects. More details can be found on page 6. Air travel hits 99% of 2019 levels as recovery continues in November. A report coming from IATA. Details can be found on page 7. CBN sacks MDs, boards of TTB, Union, Keystone, and Polaris Bank. Global unemployment set to worsen in 2024. A report coming from the United Nations. You can find details on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
With the issue of unemployment comes also the issue of talking about the fact that crime will increase
It
because when
will
people are
certainly.
jobless, Rachel,
Yes.
they will definitely do feel way to keep themselves busy. We've always heard the word that says that an idle man is the devil's workshop, and I
Of
think it's
course.
going to be. And
Yeah.
it's scary because it's not just in Nigeria. We're looking at globally.
Yes.
There's going to be an unemployment in 2024 because when you look at the environment for us in Nigeria, we're looking at the fact that the environment is no longer favorable to a lot of
It's
businesses
not.
to thrive. So we saw over 4,000 small businesses shutting down last year. We've seen where international companies left the shores of Nigeria. Manufacturers that are not from Nigeria also packed out, and even the manufacturers that are presently in the country are complaining that the first half of the year is going to be a tough one. And then here we're seeing that UN is actually trying to say, you know what, this is actually true. We're going to be seeing more unemployment this year. So I do not know what, I mean, the summit that this should be held this year should be what can be done to actually,
Concerning
because this is a
unemployment.
prediction, this is a projection.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really afraid for quite a number, because we still see companies still shutting down. A number of people are being laid off their jobs because some companies can no longer, I mean, maintain the number of staff members they are having. So a lot of things will be done, and I just hope that we don't have the issue of more bandits, more Boko Haram members, because they recruit, they take advantage of people who are not working to actually work for them, more kidnapping. We've seen that in FCTN as well. So I don't know what the government is going to do, but please, they need to do something about this eventually.
I mean, Salah, it's global unemployment. It's not just in Nigeria. I think it's both good and bad news. The good news is that, okay, let me start with the bad news. The bad news is that there will be less Japan. That is a good news. To an extent, it makes it good news that there won't be Japan, in the sense that we will still have more Nigerians staying back in Nigeria. But then it's bad news for some people because it means now you just have to stay back in Nigeria. Now, on the contrary, I believe that it is some kind of good news because we are going to still keep knocking hard on the government of Nigeria to do something, and whether they like it or not, they have to wake up and do something. And then secondly, we will have people that will have to stay back and against all odds say, you know what, we have to keep our heads above water. This business cannot die. I am going to start this business regardless. And when we have these people fighting the economy and then the challenges there, automatically such strong-willed people will give room for employment and eventually just a thriving economy, not the one that is really doing good per se, but an economy that is not completely dying. So is just, you can see it on the bad side. Either way, it might be for a lot of people because we are seeing the kind of new policies the UK is giving concerning the kind of job that will even warrant you to move and come there. It's no longer 26 pounds. We're looking at 37 pounds yearly. That is your job before you even be allowed to move. And then how many jobs, we're looking how inflation is globally, how many jobs now are out there with that kind of offer that will give you this much, not even in Nigeria, but we're looking at the world at large. So yes, it's going to be difficult for a lot of people. I believe we are not going to see the kind of leaving the country we witnessed in 2023. Yes, maybe for medical professionals, there would be that because there's still need of them. But when it comes to just other small scale small scale job, for example, where we see a lot of adverts going on concerning how you can just migrate to Canada without any skills, or you can go to the UK.
Getting
that's
the
going to
visas cheaper,
reduce
6,000, 30,000, and all of that.
exactly. That is going to reduce. That kind of thing is going to reduce. That one in specific. So, but then it means, let's brace ourselves. Can we just start thinking? I know the economic condition is really hard and harsh, but can you start thinking, what can I do? We are seeing that Tinubu is trying really hard to see that medium-scale businesses are trying. Yes, we see, even when it comes to tax, when it comes to levies, we see some of these things he is trying to reduce them. Eventually, we are seeing some kind of effort. It might not be felt that much, looking at other factors that are bigger than just the levies and the tax, but then let's just wait and see what this government have to offer and what you too will do to say, you know what, I'm not just going to let the Nigerian economy put me down.
You know, Rachel, I think this is where I'm hoping that the vast land we have should be put to work, because that is where
Truly.
people will get employed.
True.
I'm hoping that, you know, there are quite a number of sectors that are lying idle. That is when the government should take talk. Let's talk about the issue of even the illegal mining.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the government will actually hijack this thing, like collectively, hijack all of this illegal mining that are going on in the various states, in various local government areas, you see that will create job, because right now it's in the hands of the government. And I think you've mentioned this a number of times, the fact that the government are the majority when it comes to employment of manpower here in the country. So private enterprises, I mean, very few private companies we have right now, and even the private ones are the ones that strike, they are just struggling
They
to
are.
actually survive. So we just hope to see more of that, Rachel. Well, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily Times newspaper, and we're looking at the former CBN governor, Emefiele. CBN sack MD's boards of 4 banks as Tinubu weighed the big stick. Union, Titan, Keystone, and Polaris banks have been affected. Detail of that can be found on page 5. Also, we're seeing no positive outlook for manufacturing in 2024. This is coming from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. They're saying that the outlook for the manufacturing sector in 2024 may not be positive, especially in the first half of the year, which we've said this a number of times already. So they're actually looking at some of the projections. So for manufacturers in Nigeria, I think this is really interesting that we all read it and know how it's going to look like. You can start reading that on the front page and continue on page 4. ILO predict rising global unemployment in 2024. You can find that also on page 4. France to assist Nigeria in tackling insecurity. And then also we have Sokoto local government chairman sole official vehicle to save his wife and child. Detail of that found on page 11. Still on the list, 6 billion naira fraud court remands Aguloye in prison. And then we have this captivating, beautiful picture story showing us Super Eagles of Nigeria as they arrived Cote d'Ivoire for the 2023 African Cup of Nations yesterday. They look so gorgeous, and I hope that just as they look great, they will also play well as well. So you can find details of any other story that is of interest to you inside the paper.
On the Guardian newspaper, anxiety as CBN sacks boards of Union, Keystone, and Polaris Bank. Supreme Court returns Fintiri as Adamawa governor reserves judgment in Abia appeal. And on austerity between call for sacrifice and leading by example. You can find these analyses on page 4. Third mainland bridge closure, commuters lament chaotic travel, seeks reprieve. You can find more details on page 8. Calls for expanded probe intensify as the permanent secretary takes charge from Edo. Federal government disbursed 10 billion naira to 165 private accounts in 2022. Details can be found on page 3. Exit of multinationals, dead nail for local industry. Governors abdicates duties to TED Fund, Econo lament. Court remands ex-minister Ogunloye in Kuje Center. You can find details on page 5. And at the downside of the paper, shippers kick as Max impose arbitrary $300 PSS on Nigeria-bound cargo. You can find details inside the paper, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, the big story is still we are having World Bank predicts 3.3% economic expansion for Nigeria in 2024. I think we saw that yesterday or 2 days back. One of economic challenges in Nigeria, South Africa, and others, and we've seen that we're part of the countries that will be affected. So you can look up that story on page 11 of Nigerian News Direct paper. Utitola donates 1 billion naira to Lagos Security Trust Fund. And also coming from Zenith Bank, our GMD was neither arrested or detained by the EFCC, trying to clarify some of the GMDs that were being, assembled by the federal government. Here we're having Naira plummets to 1,089 Naira 0.51 kobo to a dollar on the official market. Detail found on page 11. NNPC Limited generate 2.5 trillion Naira revenue, highest in 47 years. And on Edugate, an article launched Tinubu for suspending minister calls for reform of ministry. You can find detail of that on page 2. And then we're having the Deputy Governor of Edo State saying the fact that on the election for 2024, Basike is betraying me by supporting an outsider. You can find detail of that conflict on page 8. We have two pictures to rewind. We can see the governor of Lagos State with the Super Eagles captain Ahmed Musa, the Minister of Sport, and then during the send forward in honor of the Super Eagles toward the AFCON 2023. The other one is a picture of Zenith Bank Nigeria. You can do well to grab the paper, read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On New Telegraph, oil producing states slash domestic debts to 1.58 trillion naira. This is a report. You can find details on page 3. Naira appreciates to 1,082 naira to a dollar at the official market. Peter Obi got greatest casualties of 2023 electoral fraud. This is coming from LP. We have NAMA, NCAA meet airlines over 16,000 naira charges review. Every Nigerian must have passport, says NIS. Peace project in South is not complete without advocacy to release Kanu. The big story, CBN sacks boards of Union, Keystone and Polaris Bank over non-compliance with sections of Banks and Financial Institution Act of 2022. Shareholders may oppose Apex Bank's action. Details can be found on page 2. Saturday, poll-size exams court to deliver judgment March 20th. Overhaul social intervention architectures, CORN tells Tinubu. And on Edo 2024, I feel betrayed by Obaseki, a statement from Shaibu. And on anti-graft war, I would appear in court if need be, says ICPC chair. Says enhanced tech way to go reveals threefold strategy of prevention, investigation, and prosecution. AFCC raids on Dangote could scare away foreign investors coming from the ACF. You can find details on page 3 and 4. $6 billion Mambila deal court remands ex-minister Ogunloye in Kuje prison. More details can be found on page 4 and 6. We have a study that says diet in childhood to blood vessel risks. You can find more details on page 26, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On this day newspaper, Uteitola donates 1 billion naira to Lagos Security Trust Fund, his donation to enhance security of residents. Also, Zenith Bank Jais debunk alleged arrest of their MDs by EFCC, detail found on page 6. And Ali is saying, I will appear in court to prosecute corruption cases if need be. The big story still that is making rounds on most of the paper. CBN sack boards and management of 3 banks, appoint new executive. Silent on nationalization, citing infraction of section 12C, F, G, and H of the Banks and Other Financial Institution Act, the BOFIA 2020, suggesting threat to financial stability. Assures public of safety and security of depositors' funds. So you can find detail of that for those who are actually banking with these banks. You have been assured that your funds are actually being safe and secured in those banks. We have the picture story here. Still, Oteitola doles out 1 billion naira to Lagos for security, and we're really happy when we see billionaires, adding up and contributing their quota to nation building and security. You can do well to find more detail of that story inside the paper, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, the big story, 2023 stewardship, custom rakes in 3.206 trillion naira revenue, seizes 16 billion naira worth of items, targets 5.079 trillion naira in 2024 to sustain anti-smuggling campaign. You can find details on page 6. Kingmakers Toban Akau Salihu as new Ohimege Igu of Kutun Karfe. You can find details on page 13. Our MD CEO never arrested by AFCC, says Jais Bank. Ex-Minister Ogunloye remanded in Kuje Correctional Service. CBN sacks boards management of Union, Keystone and Polaris Banks. Police arrest 3 over stolen newborn in Nasarawa Hospital. Amotekun naps son with father's fresh head exhumed from grave. This happened in Oyo State. You can find details on page 13. Tinubu appoints NACON NCPC board management teams. And at the downside of the paper, no sacred cow in Tinubu's anti-corruption fight. Coming from the ICPC chair, the writer under the story promises to lead courtroom war against grab. Caught in governance cause hope for Nigerians. Coming from Accord Party. You can find details on page 6. We have a picture story showing the Super Eagles of Nigeria, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
Now, Richard, looking at the fact that this story is making around all our papers, talking about the ex-minister that actually served during Obasanjo's regime, and then we're saying that, I mean, how many years back, and then he's now in prison. That shows that this present administration is really serious when they say they really want to do away with corruption and anti-graft, because the issues of corruption has eaten so deep into our economy and deep into our country, to the fact that you can't help but wonder maybe our systems are no longer working. That's why a number of people are getting away with certain crimes that they should be actually in prison for that. I mean, I believe that this minister, or former minister rather, did not see this coming. I mean, how many regimes have actually passed and then finally it's been brought to book? So we are hoping to see more people that have actually talking about misappropriation of the funds of Nigeria. You and I have said this a number of times, the fact that we don't even have the funds that we're having people are actually, I mean, spending it in a way that it's not supposed to be. We're saying that already the ICPC have saying they have recovered 50 billion naira already from the issue of the humanitarian affairs. So imagine when we're having this same interrogation or investigation taking place in various ministries. You can imagine how much the EFCC or ICPC will be able to recover back. And I'm really happy because we're saying that the chairman for the EFCC is very serious. We're also seeing the IPC is saying that he will be in court if need be. That tells us that we are beginning to have people of integrity that really put their foot down and say, you know what, we want to do away with corruption. And I'm seeing growth for Nigeria if this is the way we are going as a country, because where there's corruption, there will never be growth. We'll just be stagnant in one place, and then we'll begin to see, I mean, countries that we should be supporting are the ones supporting us. I mean, when we say we are the giant of Africa, it should not be by words of mouth only, but we should be able to see it in the way will be an example to other smaller African countries that are looking up to Nigeria. Because believe you me, Richard, despite the fact that we think Nigeria is going down, there are a lot of countries that are looking up to Nigeria. No wonder we're having the ECOWAS chairman coming from Nigeria, even though it was alphabetically. But regardless, that is to say, we have a lot of responsibility. So we hope that this will continue. Just like we saw, I mean, the Tinubu's administration was being nicknamed then Baba Fast. We are seeing he's really being quick and fast about certain things.
Yes.
So I'm really, really happy about that. I hope we begin to see that. Here we are seeing ICPC saying no sacred cow in Tinubu's anti-corruption fight. I'm really happy about that. And I hope we'll see that in various ministries as well to fight the issue of corruption in Nigeria.
I mean, Sally, corruption is the number one. I've said it over and over, and I won't change my opinion concerning that, that it remains the number one reason we haven't grown as a country. Because when you look at it, we have whatever it takes, everything it takes to be far beyond where we are right now. Corruption is the reason we are still struggling with terrorism. Corruption is the reason we are still having insecurity. Corruption is the reason why we are having illegal mining in the first place. Corruption is the reason why there's no accountancy and there's no transparency. Corruption is the absolute reason why we choose politics above governance. Corruption is the reason why money is being put, trillions and billions of dollars and naira, it's sunk into projects and nothing to show for, because we are rotting, to the core. And if we don't uproot the root of this problem, we are going to remain in the... If you know how much has been put into the Mambila power project over years, Nigeria should have been in the position where we don't have grid collapse and power outage and all of that. We are supposed to be in a position that our power might not be 100%, but we should be way above 60% when it comes to power in the country. And this is one of the reasons we are having manufacturers leaving. The raw materials is not even their problem, but that there is power issues. So they have to deal with diesel, they have to deal with petrol, they have to deal with gas. and they shouldn't be, because electricity should be available. So imagine if we had no issue of electricity in this country, we won't even, the problems that we have small businesses going through, will not even have it in the first place, because nobody would care about oil when it comes to businesses. It will be for other things, but not when it comes to our businesses and all of that in the country. And we can just go back and forth with so many things. When you sit down and let corruption eat your economy, you're sitting down and you're watching illegal mining eating up, and then you set up a steel rolling company, and then you refuse to secure the raw materials. What are you trying to do? I mean, who are we trying to deceive? In the end, it's just another kind of corruption, to just let the resources of the country rot. We can just go over and over how corruption has eaten deep. And if we are having President Tinubu going that back in time to fight corruption, then I believe there's hope for Nigeria. And I am just looking forward to seeing that no stone is unturned, that everybody's selling. I'm just looking at where there won't be politics in this place, but that governance will be. That is, if you have a questionable character, if you've had a fund you've misappropriated in the past, whether you are in the APC as it is now, you will be called to book and eventually answer for what you did with the funds that were given to you.
I think it's really, really very, very important, and we really have to applaud. I mean, you and I here, when you do wrong, we come after you, and when you do right, we applaud
True.
you for your steps you've taken. So we're really applauding the present administration for the steps they're doing towards fighting corruption. At this moment, we'd love to take a break so we can let you through the stories, and when we come back, we'll continue the paper analysis and as well see your own feedbacks about the stories. Please stay tuned with us.
The mandate of reaching out to the world with the message of salvation and truth is a zeal that has consumed us. Equa Television International is live 247, reaching out to the unreached with undiluted message of hope through its programming.
You can be part of what God is using us to do by praying for Equa TV and supporting Equa TV. Keep watching Equa Television International.
We are a Christian station with the driving force and mandate to reach out to the world with the gospel of salvation and truth through programming and soul-lifting events.
You can join on this mandate. Let's spread the gospel of truth and salvation to the world. Pray for Equa Television. Support Equa Television. Keep watching Equa Television.
Sharing with the world the message of truth to help people come to the saving knowledge of our Lord and King, Jesus Christ, as well as find solace in Him.
From sermon, theology, undiluted biblical principles to Christian music and drama that aims to give hope, peace, strength, happiness, as well as strengthen the faith of those who diligently seek Jesus Christ.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories where we're seeing Jais Bank and Zenith Bank coming out to say that, their MDs were not being arrested by EFCC. We're seeing that CBN is trying to shake a number of banks, Union Bank and Keystone Bank, Polaris Bank, among others. They have dismissed the board of members. And then also seeing the fact that, if you're actually banking with this bank, you should just know that your funds are safe, so there's no need for you to panic about anything. We have quite a number of stories, even seeing the fact that, the ex-power minister is actually present in Kuje prison for the issue of the money of the Mambila board. So we have quite a number of stories. We'd love to hear your own feedbacks about. The phone lines are open today, so you can do well to call us. We'd love to hear what your own thoughts are. The number to call is the number on your screen at this moment. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us, and also try to summarize your point so that other viewers and callers can also get to hear you clearly and also to call you as well. I still have Rachel Tanz with me in the studio. Thank you so much,
You're welcome,
Rachel.
Sarah.
All right, before the calls come in, let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. And on the Vanguard newspaper, Zenith Jais Bank MD is not arrested by EFCC. Detail found on page 26. Alleged $6 billion fraud. Ex-Power Minister Aguloye docked, remanded in prison. Showing car raises alarm. Detail found on page 9. Tax waivers on imported mining equipment and others on the way coming from the federal government. Obi Adeoga, greatest casualties of 2023 electoral fraud coming from the Labour Party. CBN sacked board and management of Union Keystone Polaris Bank, accused them of banks and other financial institution acts infraction. A special investigator asked the federal government to take over the banks. Detail of that can be found on page 20. And on the issue of suspension of the Humanitarian Affairs Minister, we're saying that the permanent secretary is to take over humanitarian ministry from Beta Edu. Detail found on page 9. And on economic reforms, NECA analyst expert aligned with World Bank on ease of inflation. Detail found on page 5. Still, we are having AFCON 2023 Super Eagles land in Abidjan. And then we also have a column for Olufasan. We also have a picture story down here, condolence visit, that's from the Zenith Bank, and as well groundbreaking ceremony. So you can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Transport Extra, the big story, Eagles have landed, and we are seeing a countdown that says 2 days to the African Cup of Nations. Murphy to join Eagles on Sunday. Boniface surgery successful, and on doping, Amazon to no fake January 19. We have Pochettino rules blue poor finishing. Sancho among United biggest failures. Messi lacks respect. Arteta won over signing Tony. We have Spurs seals Dragusin deal. And at the downside of the paper, we have Alcaraz eyes #1 spot. And on AFCON, StarTime pledges uninterrupted fun. You can find details on page 6, and that's all news on Punch Sports Extra.
All right, let's take a look at what the world of business looks like, where we have the big story here saying constant blackout fails to dim Disco's revenue hold. We're seeing that despite the persistent blackout experienced by many households and businesses across the country, Nigeria's electricity distribution company Discos have seen their income soar according to findings by the paper. So you can do also find more detail of that. Tinubu's 2024 power prioritized up against this obstacle, and then TCN suspend operation at Ajaokuta, still over 35 billion naira debt. Detail of that can be found on page 2. Still on Business Day newspaper, we have biggest banks dominate trillion naira club as stocks soar. Schools pause school fees hike as cost of living crisis worsen as primary and secondary schools have resumed after the Christmas and New Year holiday. We are having that private schools operators are putting the brakes on fees hike to retain students amid the surging cost of living. And I really think this is really a nice step, really coming from private school. They are being considerate with what is happening. And I really have to applaud them for that. I mean, looking at the cost of living, imagine for those going back to some of these private secondary school in particular, Richard, you know what it means to go back fresh after the holiday.
Yeah.
All right, I think we have a call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning,
Good
sir.
morning.
I'm
Hello,
calling
go
from.
ahead.
My
We're with
name is
you.
Ejeke.
All right, go ahead.
I'm calling from Lagos.
All right.
I want to have my take on the anti-corruption issue.
Go
I
ahead.
don't believe there is any fight against corruption going on in this government because they say governance is a continuous process. If there is one, the Senate President is having 110 billion fraud allegation on him. 110 billion. He is here to be invited. 500 million, and we are shouting that there is anti-corruption to say this, that. What is the question of 110 billion and 500? What is it? How can you compare them? The Senate President is sitting on it. He has not been invited. How can you be invited when they own ESP and they own every apparatus in general? Just unfortunately, is just a victim of ignorance. Because I think people that are supposed to have that money have not gotten their shares. If they have gotten their share, what we are seeing or hearing will not have happened. So I don't see this administration fighting corruption because moral burden itself is hanging on the administration. So until you speak to Nigerians about some certain issues that boring questions and answers, that is when Nigerians can answer see what the administration is about. Unfortunately, Edu is a victim of what we are now seeing today, but it is not a proof to me that this administration is about facing reality on pursuing corruption. I don't believe that.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you
so
for
much.
your contribution. Hello. All right. Thank you, sir, for your contribution on that. Thank you so much.
I mean, Sally, well, the caller said he doesn't believe that there is any fight, anti-graft war going on because we're talking about a Senate president having over 110 billion.
I
Okay,
think we have another call. Hello. Good morning.
Hello.
We are with you, sir. Good morning.
Okay, good morning.
Yes. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Okay, I'm Sam from Buhari.
All right, Mr.
Mr.
Sam.
Sam.
2 days. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year, uncles.
All right. Thank you. Please go ahead with your contribution.
It's okay. I would like to comment on the anti-corruption.
All right. Please go ahead.
Yeah, better Edu is now in state of the storm. Many of us cannot be said to be a supporter of this regime, but then we have no reason than to support it if it's moving in the right direction. Now, better Edu may have considered doing things the way it has been done before, and now she may made to step aside. Now, we would like to also urge the government to go beyond better Edu. We know what has been happening in that humanitarian ministry, from the trader money and all other things. We will want them to go beyond this level. A lot of anti-corruption cases is in the public spaces. Tinubu should be able to go beyond the issue of better Edu and begin to clean the house. And so that those of us who have misgiving about him can become his disciples. And Nigeria may seem to be changing from where we are to a better place. Again, I want to talk on the banks. About 3 or 4 MD have been to step aside. I want the government to go beyond the issue of these 4 banks, what is happening there, to look at the way customers are being exploited. If you look at your SMS from bank, they deduct you from everything beyond what you have even done. Nobody is speaking for the Nigerian masses. They should look at the banking systems where we are being exploited so that the banking industry can be a reason where we are happy to carry our money to. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you very
Mrs. Sam, for
much,
that
Mrs. Sam.
very good contribution and observation.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rachel.
And I was just trying to quickly talk about the first caller, saying that we have a current Senate president that already has a 110 billion naira allocation compared to Beta Edo's 585 million naira. And if we're going to do this comparison like that, then we will try to say that there is a bigger stealing and a smaller stealing. No, she might have started with 585. She will reach the billions eventually. But then that is why if our caller heard us, we said it's a right step in the right direction. It is a start of something new. And even shortly before he called, I remember saying that we are looking forward to seeing the government probing even people under its administration, that we will not be seeing the crimes of those who are in the party with the president not being probed when there is a need for it. And then I believe that what this caller just did is bringing to limelight that, you know what, even the Senate president is questionable. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
I'm Mr. Hello, morning.
Good morning.
I'm Mr. Francis. I'm Mr. Frank.
All right,
from
Mr. Francis,
Anambra,
good morning,
from Anambra. I'm a regular caller now.
All right, please go ahead.
Okay. Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I see Celeste smiling as usual, and Tante is equally doing fine.
Thank you.
I saw these two of them. God has spared our lives. So,
Amen.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Why I have not been calling since is because of I saw the two anchors. They are doing fine. At least they are doing justice to the program.
All right.
So whatever we are doing is just to compliment them. But I will advise them to do more.
All right.
And let's encourage them.
All right.
I'm very, very happy for whatever is happening.
Okay.
I thank God for EPA TV.
We're grateful,
And it
sir.
will grow from strength to strength. Let me say the issue of corruption is a relative issue. It's something that even the man who is there as president cannot handle it because of his past. All this one we are doing just we are just trying to dance around the holy. But let me stop here and thank you very much for having me this morning.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Francis. Do have a blessed day ahead. Thank you so much. All right. I think that's our last call for today, Rachel.
Yes,
Please quickly round up your thoughts.
Yes, it might be bigger than the president, but it's a start of something. You say, I feel for me that is the point.
That's the important
And we are looking forward to the president going after the big guys also. So if you're raising an observation that even we have people in power that are corrupt, then I'm looking forward to the government calling those people in power. I'm looking forward to them starting something that they can continue. And eventually, the most important part of it for me is the result that comes out of it, and then the answer, and then seeing that people who felt once untouchable are now being touched, and Nigerians will start seeing a new face of Nigeria in terms of corruption and all of that. I mean, corruption is even older than Buhari. If we will say ever since Nigeria started, we can go back to our leaders in the First Republic, the second, the third. We can even go back to corruption in pre-colonialism and all of that. It has been there. But then we need people. That's what leadership is all about, is starting something new and then keeping up with it. So I just hope that Tinubu have started what he can keep up with. And eventually, yes, we will see even those who are in power answering for certain things.
You know, one thing I believe, Richard, is the fact that if he can go back in time to that of Obasanjo's regime, it's just a matter of time for those who are in office presently. If you think you are standing, you better watch out, because you never can tell what is coming. I don't believe those who are actually being probed right now saw it coming. So I believe that the president have the interests of Nigeria as a whole. Let me quickly round up the Business Day newspaper. Manufacturing investment dips 53.8% as reform yet to kick in, data found on page 30. Forex stability, automation seen driving maritime growth. You can find that on page 31. And CBN dissolved board management of Union Bank, Keystone and Polaris Bank, data found on page 7. And that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, why CBN sacked boards of Union, Keystone, Polaris Bank. Christian pilgrims now for Rome and Greece. Umahi raises panels on road. You can find details on page 4. Obaseki not backing me, painful, says Shaibu. We have Abba Peaks APC form. Shareholders lose out in Cadbury's loan conversion. You can find details on page 7. The big story on the paper, AFCZ quizzes 10 officials of humanitarian ministry. Agency profiles 12 firms awarded 3 billion naira consultancy contract, Zenith, Jaiz, Clear Air. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 4, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this.
You're welcome, Sally.
And also thank you to our callers who called on the program this morning. We're truly grateful. And thank you to our supporters and viewers for always keeping a day with us on the Dailies. See you tomorrow again, and bye for now.